Hey, man. So, bunch of, I shouldn't say, well, it was a fair amount. I guess after Mariah's 5 tips to be a good wife video, a lot of folks asked us about, well, I'd like to see a video about husbands like that, or a video about 5 tips how to be a good husband. Really hard for us to do, because marriage is so, marriage is very much a religious thing for us. Sorry, goofballs in the way here. Uh, and it gets all tied up in scripture and religion and God and our relationship with God and worshipfulness, and you couldn't even begin to address it in a short video. But I thought, what the heck, Mariah didn't go into the depths. She stayed real practical, so I could probably try to do that. I'm a little hesitant. I've had 2 videos in a row where I just made a bunch of people angry at me. Probably going to make even more people angry at me. But what the heck, let's go for it. Little side note, we don't normally mess with the channel at all on the Sabbath. I thought this topic was one that we could address on the Sabbath, though, so we went ahead and did it. And of course, you see the dog. We won't do a dog update, but he's doing very well. The swelling has gone down. If you're interested in that, we've been taking some of y'all's advice. I won't tell you whose advice we've been taking because we got so many different pieces of advice, but we have taken a few of the pieces of advice and applied them, and it seems to be working. Okay, so I'm not sure this is going to be 5 tips on how to be a good husband. I'm not even entirely sure, how good of a husband I am or how much I know about being a good husband. But Mariah and I certainly have found something that works for us. So tip number 1, I'm going to make some people angry. This is for husbands, obviously. Be very, very, very careful and cautious and very, very hesitant to ever apologize or explain yourself. I'm not sure if that's my number 1 tip, but I think that's a very important tip for the modern relationship, the modern marriage. Women have already decided how they're going to react to something before it ever happens, most of the time. So sometimes it doesn't really matter what you do, but more how you do it. And sometimes, many, many times, apologizing and explaining yourself can just, to give a wife who's already got the bit between her teeth, it can give her the justification and the ammunition she needs, especially since many men are always trying to be fair and even-handed and kind of admitting their weak side of their argument and pros and cons and whatnot. And it really can give a wife the ammunition she needs to go after your tender spots. That's pretty counter-cultural. What? But I say be very, 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 very cautious and careful, and very, very slow to apologize or explain yourself. All right. Number 2, and I got this from a mainstream Christian book, and I don't normally like to take things from mainstream Christianity, but this one was good. And the book was called Kingdom Men, and I believe it's T.D. Jakes is the name.
Tony Evans.
Tony Evans. Dadgummit. Thank you, baby. Tony Evans. And it's pretty good as far as it goes. It doesn't go very deep or very far, but that little surface level it touches, it does okay. And one of the best things I read in that book was Daddy's Got This. And it doesn't matter what it is, Daddy's got this. It doesn't matter if you have any idea how to actually solve it or fix it. You just, Daddy's got this. You're gonna handle it. You may not handle it right. You might even possibly make it worse, but it doesn't matter. Daddy's got this. You have to take on the problem, and everyone's problems. It doesn't matter if it's your wife, if it's your stepdaughter, if it's your son, if it's Daddy's got this. You were put here by God to handle things, and you need to do it, and aggressively do it. They tell you this. They say, "Oh, women don't want you to solve things; they just want you to listen." Yeah, well, shut up. They don't know what they're talking about. You can look at the modern state of marriage, and they don't know what they're talking about. Daddy's got this. You have responsibility. You solve it, and you have to be very, very jealous, especially because here's the deal, men, and this isn't original to me. You hear this a lot. If men see a path forward, men will. I can't even see the phone right now. men will fight and succeed and charge the hill, but when men think there's no hope or they don't see a path forward, lots of times we'll shut down. And women are very, very willing to step up and take control, and we have to be very jealous about guarding our, I want to say prerogative, maybe it's not the right word, but our role as the doers and the deciders and the arbiters and the judges. We can't give that up. So Daddy's got this. Even if you don't know what to do or how to do it or why to do it, just do something. Pick a direction and go. There's an old saying or an old story about driving an old car before power steering. And when that car was just sitting there, you couldn't turn those wheels to save your life. But if you just got moving forward a little bit, you could change directions, but you had to get moving. Daddy's got this. Get moving. This is big for me because I tend to be that guy. I tend to be like, oh, I don't know what to do. And I want to sort of just sit there and wring my hands and imagine what the solution might look like. And I have to always remind myself, Daddy's got this. Get up. Get it done. It's not my nature. I like that 30,000 foot looking down on everything sort of view. All right, so what we got? We have don't apologize. Daddy's got this. Oh, big one. Big one. Make a lot of people angry here. All right, so let me, there's this controversy inside conservative Christian circles that I'm about to touch on. And this, here we go. Sorry about the leaves and the dogs, maybe. This video's going to get way too long. But this is a biggie. All right, listen to me, man. You can't. So there's this controversy in conservative Christian circles about should women work outside the home? Should a woman have a job? Look, we base all of our stuff. Shush, go away. It's the neighbor's dog. I don't shoot my neighbor's dog. Should they work outside the home or not? We base everything we believe about everything off the Bible. And you've got this example of the perfect woman in Proverbs 31, and that woman is working. She's buying property, she's selling property, she's a merchant, she's producing goods and selling goods. This is an amazing woman, and part of what she does is generate income and help provide for her home, and dealing with the outside world. Not just churning butter. There's nothing wrong with that, obviously. So the controversy shouldn't be, oh, should a woman work outside the home? The controversy is more about authority. Whose authority is she under? When a woman has a husband, that's her authority, and there can be no other authority in her life because of what that represents. The woman represents the church, the husband represents Christ. There can be no other authority. You can't have divided loyalty. You can't serve two masters. So the question is not should a woman have a job, or should she work outside the home, or should she provide income. It's a woman should not have any authority over her except her husband. And as men, we have to guard that jealously guard our wives. That's something else the modern world tells you not to do, but I'm sorry. I believe jealous. If you value something, if something is precious to you, you are jealous of it. You do guard it. You do hoard it. If you're a prepper, walk into your food pantry and look at your preps and think about, are you just going to take pictures of your preps and go and put them on Facebook and tell everybody, oh, look at all my preps? Absolutely not. You're jealous of those. You guard them. They're precious to you. Your wife is precious. She should be precious to you. You should be jealous of her. You should guard her. And to that extent, I believe it's very, very destructive for a woman to have an authority over her outside of her husband. And that unfortunately, in my opinion, would limit a lot of women having jobs outside the home. Now, I know I'm supposed to be talking about husbands, and that sounds like I'm talking about a woman, but I'm talking to the men, the husbands. Yeah, think real long and hard before you put your woman under another man's authority. I don't think that's healthy. It's not healthy for that other man. It's certainly not healthy for your wife. Now she's got this divided loyalty between these men, and I don't like that at all. All right, so what do we got? We got don't apologize. Daddy's got this. The authority thing. I would like to emphasize that authority thing too. Don't push your wife into the economic world. It's not their place anyway, to be honest with you, as far as living in operating in that man's environment. That should be a man's environment out there, even though it's not anymore. It should be. And I think sometimes you have to really deform a woman's personality and nature to get her to fit into that world out there, and that will. And you know what? It's not even really. You don't even make that much money off of it. By the time you count her expenses, and the added wear and tear on the family, and the busyness and sort of turmoil it can inject into the family, plus just eating out extra. That woman would have to have a heck of a job for it to, especially if you had children and childcare. It's almost not even profitable from an economic standpoint. It's certainly not a good idea from a spiritual standpoint. If you need extra income, Daddy's got this. Big problem for me. I'm not good at generating extra income. I'm not being. I'm not sticking my finger in your face and saying make more money, because I don't know how to make more money. But still, you know what? You shouldn't, even if your wife does work, you should not be relying on that income. That income should be extra. That should be going into savings, debt reduction, maybe getting yourself a place in the country so you could get out of wherever you're at. You should not have to rely on your wife for the day-to-day living expenses. I know a lot of people are angry at me right now. I know that's very, very hard to accomplish in this day and age. If you're not there, I'm not sticking my finger in your face. I'm not telling you you're a bad husband or you're a bad Christian or you're weak or whatever. But this should be a goal. This should be something you're headed for. I'm getting off track. What else? Don't ever take the words that come out of a woman's mouth at face value. Or let me take that back. I'm sorry. The words that come out of a woman's mouth should be taken at face value for that moment. But they don't have broader implications, you know? I've sometimes in the past gotten frustrated because I was like, oh, you told me this and now it's that. And you know what? The Daddy's got this. You know? I mean, if you're looking to her for leadership and direction anyway, you're probably on the wrong footing, because she's looking to you for leadership and direction, whether she knows it or not, or is willing to admit it or not. And so if you're trying to judge your performance off of her, then you're on a shaky footing anyway. I like to think of it like the nucleus of an atom, and I don't know why I do, but I do. You got all these electrons spinning around the nucleus of this atom all the time. And that nucleus of that atom is keeping all those electrons in orbit. And at any point, that nucleus could just reach its arm out, if it had an arm, and eventually that electron is going to come around and he can put a hand on it. But if that nucleus starts chasing that atom around, that electron around, the whole atom falls apart, right? You can't be chasing a woman around trying to get her to. I don't even know. Because it's starting to sound like I'm a MGTOW guy and I'm hard on women. I'm not. But they have their job, and it's not to lead you or guide you or give you direction. It's your job to lead them and guide them and give them direction. Though there's so much I would say here. My daughter just got married. I would love to sit down with her husband and just vomit on him all this stuff that's running in the back of my mind, because I have a failed marriage. I have a son, that. With another woman who was never even a marriage, and then so I have a lot of failure behind me to draw on. I would say I try to stay away from the religious stuff. I don't know how you do this without being religious. For us, it's all tied up in marriage is a metaphor for how the church interacts with Christ and how Christ interacts with the church, and that makes marriage. See, everyone knows that, but they forget to turn it around and say that makes marriage a metaphor, and so we have to live we have to conduct our marriages that way. Husbands have to treat their wives like they're Christ. That's not like their wives are Christ, but like the husband's Christ. The husband has to behave like Christ, and that is earth-shattering stuff if you stop to think about it. We all get we stop at the crucifixion when we talk about that. Oh, Christ loved the church so much he gave himself for her. Yeah, he did, but that was not the totality of what Christ did or what Christ required of the church. Christ didn't just come down and tell the church, "Oh, I love you. You're so beautiful. Whatever you want to do is fine by me. I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be fulfilled." No, Christ came down and said, I'm redeeming you. I'm dying for you. But you are giving me everything. You are dedicating your life to me. If I tell you die, you die. You will obey me. These are my rules, the way you will live. He said his yoke was easy and his burden was light. I got religious, I'm sorry. But he has a yoke and he has a burden for the church. And a husband should have a yoke and a burden for his wife. We're getting way off track here. We're getting some next level stuff. So I would say this. If you want to make it easy to be a husband, you got to get in your Bible and start figuring out how it is Christ treated the church, and how Christ really treated the church, not how Dr. Dobson. If you're a Christian, please burn every book Dr. Dobson ever wrote on marriage. Burn them all. The man, he's a good heart. I'm sure he's a sweet, wonderful man, but he didn't have the guts to go and be, truly biblical. And he wasn't audacious enough to go and be completely worldly. He's stuck right there in the middle with all the downsides of a biblical marriage and none of the advantages, and all the downsides of a worldly marriage and none of the advantages. Pick a side one way or the other, Mr. Dr. Dobson. He's actually pretty decent on child rearing. He's okay. He's not great, but he's okay. But what Dobson has to say on marriage I'll start swearing. But let's just say it would involve potty humor, okay? You could engage your 3-year-olds in how you should deal with his writings on marriage, and Focus on the Family's only gotten worse since he left. I used to have a lot of respect for Focus on the Family. Used what they were trying to do, completely lost it. Got no use for him anymore. Anyway, I'm sorry. So So if you've listened to this point, I probably should have said this at the beginning. It would be better for everyone if we still lived in a world where men could pound their chest and pound the table and make everybody get in line. I believe that wholeheartedly. I know that is completely anathema to the culture, or antithetical to the culture, and what we all say, brother, you got to be a servant leader. I hate that phrase. I am pretty convinced. I'm not ready yet to completely declare that heretical. I am this far away from declaring that heretical. Servant leader, brother, you got to lead like Christ. You obviously don't know much about Christ if you think he's your servant. But there we go. I know you'll go to your proof text and say this, that, and the other, but dig a little deeper and trust me, Christ is not your servant. Anyway, there we go. But we don't live in a world where you can pound your chest and pound the table and kick everybody in line. You have to lead like a flood. You have to be constant. You have to be all-encompassing. And you have to be completely steady and unyielding. And over time, you can't. In this world, you can't just walk in and say, "I'm the husband. This is how it should be," because she can walk over to the phone, dial 911, and say, "I feel threatened," and you will no longer be a husband or a household or anything. You'll be in jail. But if you are steady and unyielding and constant and firm, and like I said, all encompassing, and when your wife doesn't fulfill your standards, if you look at her and say, "I love you, I will always be your husband," but you are out of fellowship with me, you do not have my blessing or my consent to this, and you are on your own, you are out of authority and uncovered on this, and stand by that. She will rage. Oh my God, she will rage. But eventually she will come around. It is a woman's nature. She has, like all of us, she has a dual nature. A woman wants to be under authority of a man, and yet she wants to have authority over a man. And you have to help her to choose the right one. I am sure right now that there are people screaming at me. And this is just like 5 tips. These are like 5 tips. This isn't even scratching the surface of what we believe on marriage. We believe it is a holy, sacred thing. Adultery is the same thing as idolatry. That's in the Bible. I'm not making that up. In fact, the words are closely related. God hates adultery. He hates divorce. He hates idolatry. Marriage is very, very important to him because it's this living testament to how he relates to us and how he expects us to relate to him. And when you realize that and apply it in your marriage, boy, cool things start happening. But there you go. There's just like touching the surface of what it takes to be a good husband. I don't know if that helps anybody. You could probably make it a lot simpler. Be confident. Be in charge. jealously guard your wife and your position. And I don't know. I'll just start babbling now. I'm not overly organized in my thoughts or my habits, but that's the 30,000. If a young man sat down and told me, what's the big stuff, that's that's a lot of what I would tell him. Obviously, in a one-to-one, I would probably share more of our beliefs and some of the foundations for all that. I didn't really get into it, but it doesn't take a whole lot of reading about marriage in the Bible to start saying, whoa, have we got this wrong? And you can stay in the New Testament and do it. You can stay all in the New Testament, and you don't even have to touch the Old Testament and the patriarchs, and you realize the modern church, especially the modern Western world, we don't get it. We don't understand it. Now, I'll say this. It's very, very hard to get all the details right without the Old Testament. Most of the definitions and assumptions and all that stuff is based in the Old Testament. Some of you aren't going to like to hear this. A lot of those things are based in the Mosaic Law. The Law of Moses is where God gives us a lot of those foundational blocks that he then builds on later in the Gospels through Christ and Paul and Peter and all of them. And a lot of it doesn't make sense if you try to divorce. If you try to start Christianity with John the Baptist, it does get very, very difficult to do it God's way, because he wasn't rewriting the whole system. He was fulfilling some things, but the vast majority of what he said in the Old Testament, rolled over into the New. There was not this clean break where everything prior to John the Baptist is gone. It's all gone. This is all new. I know New Covenant, whatnot, so and everything, but that's different. Okay, it's not. We say, New Covenant. That doesn't mean every last single thing he ever said disappeared. What you got to remember is, I don't care what Christian you talk to. No one would tell you that the 10 Commandments are done away with. No one would tell you that it's okay to murder now. It's okay to all these other things. And maybe someone out there says, well, all those are restated in the New Testament, brother. Well, no, they're not. There's a lot of things that we would say are definitely sins that are not restated in the New Testament. I didn't want to go all there. That's all a bunch of, it's important stuff, but it's next level stuff. It's not 10-minute YouTube video stuff. So there you go. If you want to be a good husband, in my opinion, that's where you start. Thank you, man.